Welcome to Winning Inside, the show where we follow the journey from feeling defeated to winning. Here are your hosts, Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman.
Hello, amazing people. Welcome to the Winning Inside podcast, where we discuss real issues, insights, and solutions to help you thrive in your day-to-day lives. We know life happens, and we can choose to be a spectator or a participant.
These conversations and stories are about the participants, the ones who made the choice to do the inner work and found a way to keep moving forward.
Michelle, how are you today? How are you doing?
I'm good. What day is today? Midweek.
What is today? Midweek. Midweek recording.
Somewhere in the midweek. This will be posted on a Monday.
Monday, yes.
That's right. So happy Monday, everybody, as you are listening to this.
Yes. And happy midweek to both of us as we are recording this for you. And this is going to be an awesome topic. I actually like this topic a lot, Michelle, because we've talked around it, we've talked by it and talked near it. So you said the other day, that would make a great podcast episode. And I have to totally agree with you, because today we're talking about, what is it, Michelle?
Living small.
Living small. Minimizing yourself for whatever reason, playing it small, not reaching your full potential. And we're going to dive into that and figure out, why do we do that? And just so you know how it shows up and stuff like that and who benefits. We're just going to talk about it a little bit and kind of hear what, just share some thoughts on that whole concept. And when it comes to living small, Michelle, what does that make you think of?
Well, honestly, it makes me think of our whole world. Minus like 1% of the population, right?
Yeah.
And living small isn't just about, well, let me start with the opposite of living small. People who fully live into their lives isn't just about the 1% of the world's population that is wealthy and they have, whatever they have at their fingertips. Like, no financial hardship, unlimited means, unlimited resources. I'm not talking about that. And something that they've created even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those people, yes, certain people who have created the wealth, created the abundance in their life, then I would say they are living into the possibility of who they are, versus many of us who live small. And I include myself in that, right? And that's something that I am constantly working on every single day.
Yes.
In that, we sort of just operate in this internalized machinery, right? So it's like we're just continuing with our day-to-day existence. And I don't want to say just, because it takes a lot to even show up in that space at times as well, particularly given, the state of affairs, particularly given mental health issues, all of those things considered, just showing up in your day-to-day life can encompass a great deal of power. And when you finally have the opportunity to sort of really open your eyes, and I'm not going to talk about, this is not like woke conversation, right? Like, that is not at all what we're talking about. We're talking about experiencing life and all that it has to offer in the space that you are right now. And, what is the potential for personal growth? What is the potential for every experience that you want to have, right? And so we have all these desires, but what are we doing? Who are we being? What are we willing to do in order to achieve them? And that is living large. That is living into the possibility. That is living into abundance as well.
Yes. So we have desires, we have dreams. And when you listen to someone who's young, they'll tell you exactly what they want to do and how they're going to do it. And they have these grandiose, in fact, I'm not even going to say grandiose. They have these amazing dreams of what they want to do and how they're going to change the world in their way and do whatever it is they want to do. And at some point in life, you hear that you can't do that enough. You hear enough no's and enough doubts that you modify that dream and you change it to something else. And you no longer have this big, larger than life dream or goal or thing, and you modify to appease others because it's safer, because it's more comfortable, it's less risk. Whatever the reason, we have a way of downplaying what it is we desire in life. And that can show up as the comfort zone. It can show up as being average. It can show up as not reaching your full potential, not reaching for the goals that you could have attained if you had pushed a little further, not taking those risks, playing it safe, flying below the radar. There's so many words and idioms that we use to kind of define that. And for my children, I'll say it's, you can't play mediocre. That's mediocre speak. That's mediocrity coming in. You can't think like that. And I'll tell them, because you're better than that. And I really try to push that on them so they don't lose that fire. I'll give you an example. When my son was, I think he was 3, may have been 2 or 3. We went to a parade, a military parade, and it was at Headquarters Marine Corps in DC, big old marching band. And it was great show, great pageantry. And he gets up when the band stopped playing, it just got this dead silence. And he was like, "Dad, I can do that." Like really loud. Like the audience started busting out laughing. He looks at me and he's like serious, like, "I can do that." And he's like, "It's just like the movie Drumline." And he was like air drumming. And it was so hilarious because in his mind, I could be one of those guys. Give me some sticks. I want to get there and march with those guys. But he believed in himself, and the power of believing in yourself, no matter what it was. He wasn't like, "Oh, they're bigger than me. They're in uniform. They're Marines. I'm just," none of that. It was just, I can do that. At what point do we lose that I can do that audacity, that braveness, that fearlessness? And then life kicks in and we just downshift that. And there was a point where that happened. And then, I mean, he's an awesome drummer, but there was a point where it's like, I can't do that. There's this thing that comes in where people tell you no enough to where you start to believe it. How do we roll that back? How do we roll that back? And I'm not saying being childish. I'm saying be childlike. And childlike in the fact that children are so curious and brave and fearless and full of energy and ready to go. And some of those traits are pretty awesome. And as we get older, I know we lose some of that, but there's some greatness there. And if we can tap into that, maybe we can attain those things that we've been playing small in when we modify our goals. So people might ask, how does that show up in your day-to-day lives? And it can show up at work, school, family. In any area of your life, this can show up where you have big dreams and big goals and massive desires to do something that maybe nobody knows. Maybe you used to articulate it. Maybe you used to share it with people. But at some point, you negotiate with that dream. You have a deal with that dream. Well, how about we compromise a little bit? How about we just do this instead of that? How about I don't look for this job. I look for one that's a little safer. How about I don't go so far away from home, but I just stay a little closer? Whatever it is, you reduce the risk, which means you probably reduce the reward, and you modify your goal. I'm not going to say it's a dream deferred, but it's a dream modified. You modify the dream so that it fits into your day-to-day life where it seems more attainable. So instead of raising the bar or jumping over the bar, you actually lower that bar to play it safe. That can be living small. And the frustrating part about that is you have a passion that's greater than that. And how do you rationalize that? How do you deal with the fact that you wanted to do something great? You wanted to open a restaurant, but instead you don't do it. If someone knows you have a gift, people know you have a gift and you don't use it or you don't operate in that space for whatever reason. And it could be fear, it could be doubt, it could be a lot of things, but for whatever reason, there's something that you want to do and you're not doing it. That's what I would consider living small.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And not to get too academic on you, but to bring it back to, what is living small versus what is living large. In order to recognize that you're living small, you have to see that there is an opportunity to live large, right? And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which, I mean, if you're not familiar, you can straight up Google this, but it's essentially like a pyramid, right? And at the base of this is our physiological needs, which is our physiological human needs. So food, sex, sleep, like all of those things are part of that, right?
Yes.
And then we move up from there into more of like the safety and security. And this is honestly where a lot of us sort of reside between safety, security, and like the love and belonging, which is one stage above that.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I mean, we're talking about friendship and family, and those are some really fundamental human psyche needs, that feeling of belonging to something. Moving up above that, it's kind of that self-esteem, like, oh, I'm achieving things, I have respect, like,
Yeah.
what is going on around me, like, how can I, almost like in comparison to others still. But then above that is really, it's the level of self-actualization, so you're reaching your full potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with that, that is what Cheddy's talking about in terms of those big dreams. And it's like, it's one thing to say, like, well, I have this goal, but it's, if you look at that goal and you multiply it times 10, that's living big, right?
Yes.
And with that, the amount of risk and the amount of, honestly, failure that you're going to need to experience along that journey is what gets you to the point of self-actualization. It's not achievement of the goal, it's the journey towards that
Towards it.
10 times goal.
Boom.
Right? It's not the having of, it's the process in terms of who you have to become in order to continue down this path that is, quite honestly, treacherous. I mean, when you 10x some crazy goal, this is out of control, where you're just like, this is living large, right?
Yes.
Time wise, when we're talking about goals, it doesn't have to be next year. It doesn't have to be in 5 years, 10 years, like whatever it looks like, but it's giving yourself the space, giving yourself the space to actually feel into the possibility. So feel it in your emotions and your body, feel into the possibility of what that 10 times goal is. That's living large, right?
Love that.
And
Yeah.
as soon as you take the first teeniest, tiniest baby step in that direction, you're going to feel all kinds of regret and fear that's going to send your brain into fight or flight, right? And that response in the face of that, even though it's the tiniest step in that direction, and in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a whole lot, right? But you're already thinking how scary that path is going to be towards, self-actualization, towards living large, towards all of that, that you just stop right there because you stay within the safety and security level. So keeping that in mind as you dream, as you lean into that curiosity, that childlike curiosity, that sense of wonder, right? And this is all goal based, but it's really even just, how do we live large in our day-to-day lives? It's not just taking steps towards your goal, but it's like, how can I challenge myself to grow in this very moment, right? This action that I take doesn't have to be towards a specific goal, but maybe I'm not that comfortable talking to strangers, and you don't have to be, but I could smile at a stranger. I could wave at a stranger who's driving down the street, and my friend used to make fun of me because I'd visit her, and I might have mentioned this already in a podcast, but I visit her in her area where she lived, and I have no ties to this area, but we'd go for a walk around her little cottage, and I would wave and say hi to people as they were watering their lawns, and hey, how's your day? And people would talk to me, and she's like, what the hell? You're the mayor of my town.
I do the same.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, it doesn't take a whole lot for me to at least attempt to impart some lightness, some smile, some pleasantry to a stranger that I may never see again, right? It doesn't take a whole lot to offer that into the world. And so for me, that is part of my living large.
Yeah.
Instead
Seeing
of
you do that.
Yeah. Instead of just kind of saying in sort of my tunnel vision of like, I'm going from A to B and B to C. So yeah, that's part of this idea of living large. It's not just living towards some giant goal. It's also just, what am I offering into the world today?
I've seen you do that. And it's so funny because as the fly on the wall, the person just watching you do it, I think you don't even know you're doing it. I think you're so unconsciously proficient at it. You just do it. And I watch the person you're doing it with. And as they walk off, I watch how they're like they just seem like they're so elevated. And you probably didn't even notice that because you've moved on. And I'm still watching them like, you just changed their whole day by doing that. That is living large. It's
sometimes if I look back, they have a really funny look on their face because they're like, do I know this person? Why are they talking to me? And I've seen enough of those faces that I was like, just moving on.
Yep. It's just funny. But think about it. You've really made that day. They're trying to figure out why you did that because that's not something they go through in their normal day to day. But you change people's day that way. Kindness for no good reason, seeing people for who they are for no reason, for nothing that you want from them. You're just sharing Michelle. And I think that is a beautiful thing. Just your ability to do that to other people. It's one of your facets of wealth, one of your treasures. I don't know the best way to say that, but it's the magic you have that you give to other people. And then hopefully they might do the same thing. But I guarantee some of them go home. Some lady just saw me and started talking to me and helped me out. I had a really great conversation. And I was like, do I know her? Is it one of your friends? I don't know who it was, but hey, I made my day. And she kept moving on. I was like, I don't think I know her.
Well, if anything, I'm just hoping that they turn around and smile at the next person that they cross paths with, right?
That's the effect.
That's the effect that we can have in this world. And that's why I see that as part of living large, right?
Exactly.
Is because we can have a greater effect with the ripples that we create, starting with just some momentary 5-second interaction with a stranger.
Yeah.
It's why if I'm paying at a register, I stop, I try to do all the things that I need to do. So I'm not shuffling around my wallet so that I can look the cashier in the eyes and smile at them pleasantly and say, how is your day? And how is everything going? And say like, hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate your help. Ask them a question. Even if it's not something that's important, I'll ask them a question like to allow them to really even help me in the simplest way, right?
Yeah.
Because people love to feel valued. They love to feel like they're offering something.
Exactly.
And giving that people an opportunity to do that is also part of living large in their day-to-day lives.
I love that. It's funny because other people benefit from you living large. They really do. It just makes the world better. People need us. What kind of a world would it be if everybody lived large? Like in other words, lived up to their capacity, their full potential, or even 80% of their potential. How amazing would that be if people played big? I just think about where we would be. And, there's this saying, you probably heard it, like the greatest inventors are probably in heaven and they didn't invent anything, or wherever they may be. They probably died with their greatest inventions. I've heard great basketball players talk about basketball players that you've never heard of as the greatest basketball player they've ever seen because they never made it to the big leagues in college or in, professional sports or other athletes. They say, this is the best person I know in this sport.
That's true. Nobody's ever heard that too. Absolutely.
I used to, when I was in high school, there was a bunch of people I knew who could do track and field better than I could. And I'm like, it took one guy from 7th grade to 12th grade before he ran. And when he ran, he started killing it. And I've been telling this guy since I came to America, like, you need to be like running track and field. And he wouldn't do it. And then he did it. And it was like, if you had started this 5 years ago.
Well, the opposite of like who benefits from you living large, which is, we'll never know. We'll never know the positive impact we have on the multitudes of people that we cross paths with. Yeah. And the opposite of that, though, is like who benefits from us living small. And this is not from a place of justification, but we talked last week about, essentially a 3-step process of understanding why you're doing the things that you're doing. And 1, it's to become aware. And then 2, it's to question. So if I'm risk averse, if I'm avoiding failure, then even though I know that these failures are going to get me towards my dreams, right? Then the question is, who benefits from me playing small? And I'll tell you right now, I mean, I do this all the time. I have for years. Like all my clients do this. Like, this is why we have jobs as life coaches. Yeah. In that, when we play small, we allow ourselves to be comfortable. We allow ourselves to feel
That's the
some
word.
sense of false security, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the greater world, we are lulled into a false sense of security oftentimes. So the question is, who benefits from that in terms of our individual selves and our individual dreams and our individual sense of living small? Then it's like our inner child, if you will, that feels that
Yeah.
sense of security, that we have to protect our inner child, which is our psyche, our ego. Like, we don't want to negatively impact those things, right?
Yes.
So we're like, you know what, I'm okay right here, so I'm just going to stay in my lane, right?
Yep.
But then there, and listen, this is the truth. There are people who have interviewed people on their deathbeds. It is the regret that we did not step into at least the pursuit of that self-actualization, at least the pursuit of the potential that we possess as humans, right? That is the regrets. That is the regret that we share and we feel. So if our lives are finite, we have a finite amount of time to be on this earth, then look at where you're at now. What do you want to do with the time you have left?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
there is a benefit to playing small, but really, what benefit is that? Is
Mhm.
that actually a benefit at the
Yes.
end of the day?
Exactly. And you mentioned a great thing. You used the word comfortable. And for me, I'm always talking about the comfort zone. And what is the opposite of comfort? Discomfort. And I'm going to say, if you can get into that space of discomfort where things don't feel so easy and so safe, that may be a space where growth is. I'll always say this and I'll stand by this all day. You can challenge me all day, but there is no growth in the comfort zone. It feels nice, it's warm and it's fuzzy and it's cute and it fits you well, but there's no growth there. There's no growth there. And until you get a little uncomfortable, you're not going to change the situation. So comfort can make us stagnant sometimes. Stagnant has no growth. Things that are stagnant start to turn stale. Things that are stale start to die. And that's a great place to go to just have your dreams die when you're comfortable. But now that's not saying that you get to a place where you've pushed and you've grown and you've reached that space and now you're relaxing and enjoying the fruits of your labor. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you play it safe sometimes and you play it small and you don't stretch yourself and you don't reach out for those goals, take that chance on yourself, bet on yourself, that you lose that opportunity. You lose that opportunity to grow. And who wants to live with regret? How about the regret be, or the thought be, I did it, I tried it, it was great, I'm glad I did it. Advice, I wish I had done this. What is the worst that could have happened? I would have been one step closer to my goal. It's a paradigm shift. It's just a different way of thinking. And my thoughts on that are sometimes venture out to be in that discomfort zone, be in a place where you feel a little afraid, be in a place where you're not the smartest person in the room, be in a place where you feel like you're the novice again, because you go from being a novice to you're going to be a novice before you become an expert. So you got to start somewhere, but take a step towards your goals and see what that looks like for you. I mean, why would you not do that?
So, one of the things that I had been doing for a while, which I want to find like an ice bath place. I know this is like sounds like a total tangent, and it is. But that being said, when you jump into an ice bath, which interestingly, we did this as college athletes, but really we would only go up to like our our
Yep.
legs, because our legs were just shot from playing volleyball for hours a day. But it was freaking hard and it was cold, right? Now imagine going all the way up to your neck. And I've
Yes.
done that before too. And it's an intense experience because your body's like, what the hell? Get
What are
out
you
of
doing?
here, right?
Yes.
Like,
Heart
save
rate.
yourself, save yourself.
Yeah.
And you're telling yourself and you're forcing yourself to kind of stay there. And you can jump out, right? And people do. But the reality is that when you kind of challenge that fight or flight mechanism, when you challenge that and you utilize the resources at your disposal. So breath work when you're in that ice bath, you're managing your brain by using your breath. You're just staying super focused and present in the moment, staying in your body, not leaning into the kind of the pain that you're feeling from the ice, right? But what you realize is that you didn't die, right? And there's that, is that from Hangover where
did you
die, right? And the thing is, that is actually what's happening when you are taking risks towards your dreams. Is your body's like, you're gonna die, right? Your brain's like, you're gonna die. What are you doing? You're gonna die. Like when you're running, you decide you want to run a marathon, you take your first long distance run, 13 miles, and your body's like, oh hell no, you're gonna die. But you do it, right? You still do it. And then you're conditioning your brain to realize, and you're conditioning your body to realize that you're capable of so much more.
Yeah.
And so that is the work that we have to do, right? When we have a big dream. But when, in terms of setting that dream, consider what that dream is and then multiply it by 10. And then it's going to be scary.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be a scary dream. You're just like, there's no way. Okay, so what? So what if there's no way?
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Just keep moving.
You don't have to figure it out. Sometimes things just fall into place. There's a Mr. Bean sketch. You may have seen it or not, but he's so unaware of what's going on. He's walking. He ends up walking out of a window, walks off a building, walks across a truck, and he's just looking down at something, whatever, not paying attention. But everything seems to work out to where he walks and steps down and down until he ends up on the beach. And he was looking for the beach. But if he had looked up, he would have realized that, oh my gosh, I'm on a roof. Oh my gosh, I'm on top of a truck. Oh my gosh, I stepped down to a car. And next thing you know, he's just walking on the beach and he looks up and he's like, oh, great, I made it. And in that, he doesn't know how he's going to get there, but he gets there by taking another step. I'm not saying being blind and reckless. That's not what I'm saying. But it's a cute and funny point.
You might actually die if you follow that path.
Don't be Mr. Bean.
Don't do that.
But it's just funny how he was able to just kind of follow his goal to get there, and he did. And somehow, as Paulo Coelho says, the universe conspired in his favor. Like it just happened and it worked out. Sometimes people will see you on a dream and they will help you along because they like the hustle. They understand the goal. They align with your dream and they want to help you on your journey. You just never know. But if you never reach out, people will never know. And you're a secret agent, i.e. someone where people don't know really what you do. But if people know what you're trying to do, you may find people who are aligned with you and be like, hey, I'm trying to start that too. I'm trying to start a restaurant just like you are. Let's do it together. You never know what that thing is. I'm trying to run a marathon. Let's be accountability partners. Keep me tight. You know how to do this. You know how to sell, and I know how to create something. So I'm going to create it. And if you sell it, we'll be great together. Who knows what that is? But that's how partnerships form. That's how alliances form. So, but you never know if you don't put yourself out there. So I'm going to say, put yourself out there. And I was telling my son this the other day. You've got to put yourself out there sometimes and get out of a space where things are comfortable. And if people say no to whatever you're asking, they're not saying no to you. They're saying no to the idea. They're saying no to the thing. It's not a personal thing. And sometimes it might be, but generally speaking, they're probably saying no to the thing that you're offering. And think about it. Have you been into a shoe store looking for shoes and asked the salesperson says, hey, can I help you? And you said no to them? Well, you said no because for whatever reason, you didn't want the help at the time. But you went in the shoe store to get shoes and the shoe store clerk could help you get those shoes. Think about that. And he's like, oh yeah, that's right. So sometimes we say no, even when we say no. So expect other people to say no sometimes, but every no gets you closer to a yes or to an opportunity. You're at least putting it out there. Don't be afraid to put it out there. Don't be afraid to put it out there. You never know where that yes is coming. And it could be the next person you ask, or it could be the next opportunity. It could be the next risk. It could be the next idea. The next thing could be coming. So keep striving towards those goals because you have them and you were inspired with them for a reason. Well, here's a tip though. I mean, there's a bunch of things you can do to not live small. But one thing is to recognize what your definite purpose is. What is it that you desire? Really focus on that. Like, what is it that you want? What is it you're good at? Focus on those things. And if you could, what would you do in this world to leave a mark on it? Ask yourself that question. If there was nothing stopping you, what would you do? That may be one of those spaces where you'd live large. What is it that you do that makes you feel like a superhero, that makes you just feel larger than life? Then that may be the thing that you might want to pursue so you can live large. What is the thing that you're definitely afraid of? Like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't know how to. That could be the space where you could live large as well. So just things, just food for thought, just stuff to think about. And what happens if you take a step in a direction, even if you're afraid? What happens there? I don't know. These are just questions, but there are things you could do. What if you have a desire, but everyone's telling you it can't be done and you do it anyway? Who's to say? What do those people say when you do the thing they said you couldn't do? What happens then? I don't know. But you are in the driver's seat and you have the opportunity to live. And if you're going to live, you can live small or you can live large or somewhere in between. It's a spectrum and you get to choose how much of that you want to do, how many of your goals you want to realize, how much you want to accomplish. Or we can live in fear. And fear is consuming and fear is greedy and fear is going to take all it can from you. It's not going to be satisfied with you just being a little small. It's going to make you as small as possible because small equals safe a lot of times to that psyche that Michelle was talking about. You know, that subconscious mind, that inner voice that makes you want to live small because I'm here to protect you. In other words, I'm here to keep you small. But how about you negate that voice? What if you question it? What if you don't listen to it? What if it's not telling you the truth? What if that voice is not telling you the truth? What do you do with that? So just food for thought and things to think about as you're going on your day-to-day, you know, as you're going about your day. Can't even talk right now.
I am on a mission to shift 500 minds in the next 50 days. And Cheddy is on this mission too. And how are we going to do that? So everything we do as coaches is mindset based. This podcast that you're listening to are coaching frameworks, workshops, and speaking engagements.
I'm inviting you to join us in this challenge by sharing this or any other episode that made an impact on your mindset with 5 friends. If you think your workplace could benefit from working with us, we have hosted webinars, on-site training, speaking engagements. Let us know.
Send us an email directly to winninginsidepodcast@gmail.com and let us know who you've shared our podcast with, or if you'd like more information on how to work with us. Let's go help 500 people transform their mindset and just watch what happens.
Thank you for listening to Winning Inside with Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to click the follow button, rate and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcast. You can connect with Cheddy and Michelle at winninginside.io. Keep listening. Another episode is coming soon.